As if you had a choice. Even if you cannot hear my voice, I'll be there. So when I hear the words of that song, as if you had a choice. So many of us that joined this movement, at one point or another, we realized we really didn't have a choice. Because once we realized the truth is the truth, it overrides everything. So I want to share from this particular speech called Myself. And this is already part way into this speech. This was January 1980, many, many years ago, actually, before most of us were blessed to each other. I was matched in 1979, so I already knew a little bit of what was coming. Not really, I had no idea. But I was matched in 1979 to Sharon. Then this, I think I was here at this particular speech, but I'd like to share some very deep content here. No one is dozing off this morning. Everyone seems to love love. Father been speaking about love. Is it good or evil to sacrifice your own life for the sake of the world? These pragmatic Americans call something evil with one side of their mouths and then call it good with the other side, twisting it around for their own convenience. Throughout history, God has seemed to be unjust because it was good people who were sacrificed all the time. But being sacrificed is the best way, actually. What kind of person makes a good president? If a tyrannical, pushing man is the one who works best for the sake of the world and is the most effective in educating Americans and the world, then is it good if he is president? Or does a tyrannical person have no place? It is good if he is doing God's job. Is Mr. Carter very dynamic? The first thing a politician thinks of is how he is going to get reelected next term, and he makes compromises with justice and righteousness to get along. It should certainly be wrong if a president thinks more about his reelection than about what is right for America. No matter what the situation is, my purpose is consistent. I work for the sake of God and humanity and never compromise. I keep telling Americans the truth. Americans don't like to hear bad things all the time. But if they have to hear bad things over and over in order to finally change, then the purpose of giving that advice is served. The Unification Church is not fighting for the Unification Church. We are sacrificing the Unification Church for the sake of the world and God. That is what I have done all my life. That doesn't look very workable to pragmatic people, but actually, it is the most effective way. A self-centered person doesn't understand that self-sacrifice is the best way of life simply because God and the universe always protect a person who is working for their cause. An explanation must be consistent from head to tail, no matter how big or small the situation. So Father explains clearly, you can't lose by living for the public purpose, because God and the universe will always be with the person who is living for the public purpose. This explanation is true in small things or in big things. Would you prefer a leader who buys you candy all the time, or one who will make you into a person who is worthy to be object to this great subject? Do you think it would be easy to convert a person away from evil and make him into someone who is worthy of being that object? It is even harder to do in America because here there is an adverse atmosphere of self-centeredness. I have to pluck someone out of that environment before I can teach him. It is a little less difficult with the Oriental because that culture is more oriented toward the whole, which is God's way of thinking. Here, the culture is not group-centered, but individual-centered. You have to realize that you can't take individualism for granted. No, Father doesn't condemn individualism. He expects us to be unique and special individuals. But he warns us, don't take this individual blessing that you have for granted. Even unambitious people are excited and inspired when they join the Unification Church and realize what God's idea is. But the difficulty of everyday life is also fantastic. It doesn't make sense that you can have only things that are fantastically happy and not those which are fantastically difficult. Any worthy man in the past has led such a life. You have to expect the good and the bad. Take one with the other. You know this is the most fantastic life possible, but you wait 3 years to be blessed and have no dating in the meantime. Then you wait 3 more years after getting married, and even after you are together, you do the hard work of witnessing. The women worry also about whether they will be too old to have children by the time they get married. On top of that, there are many Orientals in charge of your activities. Plus, you go fundraising and you receive no recognition. All put together, you are in a quandary, deciding whether this is fantastically miserable or fantastically wonderful. But even when you are full of tears, you know this is the best way. Even if you have to risk your life a dozen times a day. This is still the best, because it is the way of love. I remember these times. After being matched and blessed, going through this kind of situation, being separated, and also, quite honestly, my wife's nature and my nature don't mix very well. It was very difficult. But now, the years pass. And what is the result? What is the fruit of that sacrifice? On my 60th birthday, I can have a daughter. A granddaughter. My daughter has a granddaughter. This is the reality. Who would have imagined? None of us could have foreseen this. And yet, true parents promised us and always told us, just keep living for the sake of others. Do the hard thing. Don't worry. Sacrifice and give. We have a job to do. America needs salvation. People need to be saved. And we went out and we did it. And not all of our situations have ended up like this. Members have come and gone, and some family situations are very difficult still. But in the end, God is going to bless all of us. God has blessing for all of us. I am no dumber than anyone else. I knew this principle before you did, and have gone this way my whole life without compromise. There is no in-between way for either you or me. I thought that probably no one else on earth would have courage or wisdom to do this, and that I would probably be going all by myself. But then I looked back after a time and found hundreds of followers straggling after me, trying to go the same place. And there were many white people among them who were determined to give their lives. Then there were other white people who weren't happy with me and tried to persecute me. The important question is which side God and the universe will be on. Now you know better who you are. Confucius said that whoever knows himself will be a success, and wise men have always accepted this. Should we let any circumstance divert us once we know who we are? Once you know, you should be able to laugh off the scorn of even millions of people. This is 1980. This is the year to take off and fly and go into orbit. You should be confident that you are masters of the universal thought, which has been hidden all these thousands of years. There is nothing vague about this. The divine principle, what Father teaches, what Reverend Moon went around this country teaching. We should be confident that we are the masters of this universal thought, this universal truth. And there is nothing vague about this. This is reality. little more explanation, which will make it easier to follow. Why do I train you on earth instead of later in the spirit world? Why do you have to struggle on earth in order to learn? Of course, you have to reserve yourselves, but you must love your family more than yourself because it is a bigger cause. Even though it is painfully difficult, and you may not be able to carry it out on earth, you will be given credit for doing your best. Then, when you get to spirit world, the path will be open to accomplish it successfully there. When the family has to be sacrificed for the world, and you try your best, even if you are not completely successful on earth, a crude road to finish it will be open in spirit world. If you don't even try on earth, however, there is no road for you in spirit world later. Again, Father explains from a bigger perspective. It's not just about our life on this earth. It's about our eternal future, our eternal destiny, and the lessons that we're learning here, and the growth that we go through. That will be a great benefit when we get to the spiritual world. You are in hell when you find yourself with no avenues open at all. Then you are living in complete isolation and are unable to go where you have to go. You can see ultimate happiness around you, and it looks within reach. But in reality, it is too far away to seize. If you can't get along with a certain person on earth, that relationship will carry on into spirit world and be hell. You will know you could experience happiness with that person, but because you didn't make it happen on earth, you can't do it in spirit world. The most important reason why I work so hard pushing you and trying to inspire you to go the difficult road is that I know about spirit world. If you can unite and follow, then there will be at least a small road open for you in spirit world. If you are successful in loving people of all races, all spirit world will applaud you and welcome you. Wherever you go in spirit world, spirit men will tag along. Our life here is short, but we can accomplish and settle much in order to claim happiness in the spirit world. Your status in spirit world is eternal. This is one of the reasons why we suffer willingly. The purpose of a business is to gain profit by investing some money. If we invest very much pain, then we profit 100 times more. In the lottery, $1 can win thousands. But here, there isn't even any risk, and still we are guaranteed to win. The Father's explaining again the reality of the spiritual world. That God is looking at us, at mankind, at every situation, not limited to our physical life. But He sees what's going to happen when this person passes away and enters into the spiritual world. Because the moment that that happens, nothing has stopped. Life has not stopped for the people. Here we think, oh, this is their end. Oh, they're gone. It's finished. It's all done. Oh, woe is me. Woe is me. But every single person is just suddenly in the spiritual world. And God, as the parent, is just as close to them there as He was with us here. And His biggest concern is for the eternal life. You know, one young lady, her name was Young Moon Kim. And we all know the name Young Moon Kim, right? Wasn't Young Moon Kim professor? Right. Well, this is a 16-year-old unificationist, and she was on the ferry. And she died on that ferry that went down in Korea. She was just 16 years old. But that's not the end of her life. For some reason, it was her time. God chose. And she was there for a reason. It wasn't just a coincidence. And so she went down. Maybe she's there comforting other people her own age. Maybe she's able to help people because of her position. Because of the sacrifice her parents made and the conditions her parents made. But she's not gone. Certainly not forgotten. And this is the reality. You know what the number 2 most popular movie in America is right now? Heaven is for real. It's made more money than everything except Captain America. Captain America is number 1, action-packed, exciting. This movie is number 2. This movie should be called Spirit World is for Real. Because that's exactly what this movie is about, from beginning to end. Where did this movie come from? This is Bishop T.D. Jakes. You know about him? He's a very, very famous black preacher. You go into any Christian bookstore and you'll see rows of his books. He's very popular, very successful. He helped produce this movie. He funded it. He read the story about this young boy, a 4-year-old kid that had a near-death experience. And then he started talking about what had happened to him, to his father. His father was a pastor in Nebraska for a very, local church. And the movie is about not just the experience that he had, but it's about how it affected his community, his parents, how it challenged their faith, challenged their doctrines. Because some of the things he started telling them that he experienced in the spiritual world contradicted some of the things that they believed about Jesus and God and everything. Remember the movie Braveheart? We were soldiers once. Pearl Harbor. This is the director of the movie, Randall Wallace. I think probably he must be connected to Wallace. Braveheart was about Wallace, right? His last name was Wallace. Anyway, he's the person that directed this movie. This is not just an indie. I saw the movie. Has anyone here seen the movie? No one in this room has seen the movie yet. It's a wonderful movie. It's a great movie. It's a beautiful movie. And it's all about the spirit world. It's about the reality. The movie even goes as far as to show what Jesus looks like in the spirit world. Don't you think that's pretty controversial? I mean, I'm sitting there watching the movie, and in the very beginning, they show the beginning of the movie starts with this girl in Europe, a young girl, about 15 years old, and she's painting this huge painting. And she's painting because later we find out that she has been receiving revelations. And so she had revelations from the spirit world, and she paints things. And so she became kind of very famous. Well, as the movie goes on, this young boy, he talks about meeting Jesus in the spirit world. And in the first part of the movie, we don't see the face of Jesus, right? I thought, that's smart. You got to be careful. If you show Jesus' face, I mean, that's serious. You're really putting it out there if you have the nerve to show what you believe Jesus looked like in the spirit world, right? But then near the end of the movie, and his father keeps showing him pictures, right? Did Jesus look like this? Pictures from the Bible, pictures that Michelangelo painted on the Sistine Chapel. He said, no. And then finally the boy sees the picture that this girl painted. He says, that's him. Is it true or not? I don't know. You want to see the picture? You want to see what they said Jesus looked like?
Looks like Kenny Loggins.
Hey, I don't know. But isn't it amazing that this movie would have the audacity to not just talk about the spiritual world? The boy has an experience. The reason the parents know that he's telling the truth is because he starts to describe the things that were happening to him when he was on the operating table. How his father went into a room and started yelling at God and cursing God because God was about to take away his son. And he talks about how his mother got on the phone and started asking people to pray. Please pray. And then it shows so many things. And there's so many other points in the movie that are very confronting. He eventually tells his, oh, you could get this on the internet, you don't have to worry. He eventually is talking with his mother. Remember, we're talking about a 4-year-old boy, okay? He's mentioning to his mother, he says, oh, Mom, I didn't know I had a sister. He said, I saw my sister. And she said, he had an older sister. In the movie, he has an older sister. His sister's 7 years old, and he was 4 years old, or she was 8 years old. And his mother says, yeah, you have a sister, of course. You know you have your sister there. She was over there. He says, no, this is my other sister. And the mother starts crying because she had a miscarriage. And they didn't even know if it was a boy or a girl. And they never told their son about this. Because he's a 4-year-old kid, he's not going to know anything about this. But in the spiritual world, he says he saw this girl. And she didn't have a name. Because they didn't name her. That's also very controversial. That's, whoa. You talk about abortion rights and you know, you're making a statement that says that unborn babies might still exist in the spiritual world or in heaven, as they continually say. This is the reality of the age we're living in. So when true parents are telling us about the spiritual world, this is reality. Even people are beginning to realize this is the reality. One step after another, we lengthen the sections of the bridge of love. We are building it inch by inch, and though there are miles to go, we keep going. No matter what opportunities there are for you in life, you would rather follow me, right? Why? I don't give you money or time or power. You say it is for love, but have you seen that love with your eyes? I am like a parent nagging you to study after school and pushing you to study again, even when you have finished. You get frustrated, I know, but still, I tell you to keep studying. That's love. You may be comfortable if you don't do it now, but for the sake of the big purpose, you sacrifice a little time. That is goodness. It can be good to spank a child if it is intended to secure his eternal well-being. It is correct logically. True love is worth anything. Now you know about the individual, so let us think when we would like to be in this position. 10 years or 100 years from now. Now sounds pretty close to no. And no sounds close to no. Do you know or not? Can you go this path alone? Who do you need? Would you rather have a yoke on your neck to be sure you go the correct way? Should I allow you to do whatever you want? Now we are secure and comfortable because we know the objective. But the problem is half solved. But now you have to accomplish the goal. And you think you need someone to push you because you can't do it alone. You feel you can be a champion if only you had a trainer. A trainer is someone who gets after you and nags you all the time. At some point, you get so aggravated that either you confront your trainer and give up, or you become the champion. At some point, you want to do away with the trainer and rebel. That is the reality. Don't appoint only one trainer because you will have free time when he is away, which is no good. Appoint a dozen trainers. One Chinese, one Korean, one Japanese, one American, one German, and so forth. Then wherever you go, you will bump into a trainer, and he will chase you after you. Perhaps you could tolerate one person kicking you, but what about 12 people kicking you at one time? But when you determine to survive, you will be a champion when they get tired of kicking you. Of course, Paul's not talking about getting kicked. He's talking about spiritually. Different kinds of people grating on you all the time, challenging your patience and whatever. That's what we have to get used to. That's what we have to learn. Learn to love and forgive and unite with people. And then we become champions of heart. This is no ordinary life to be lived at a whim. It is most serious, not only for our generation, but for all history. All Unification Church members know they each have a spirit man which lives eternally in spirit world. You have never been to spirit world, so you are persuaded through logic that it is so. Because you start at the lowest part of life, there is no place to go but up. The thousands of people outside the church who study us can't figure us out because they don't know about the spirit world. Sometimes I look ordinary, sometimes deceptive, sometimes great. Even many intelligent people all have different opinions about me. They can only conclude they don't understand me. Honestly, sometimes I'm perplexed. If people really took the time and just studied the divine principle and really looked closely at what our movement did, then they would be able to see it so clearly. But it's just fallen nature. It's the nature of people. Am I going my way by accident? No one in the world has any idea what the world will be like even next week. But we know how the past was and what direction history will take. Our path is basically a religious life. And who is the most strict, most serious of trainers? That's Reverend Moon. This is a training ground. And that's why you sit on a cold concrete floor for hours and hours. You are here to be trained, not just to enjoy a sermon. You do that for years and years. And people wonder if you do that because you are scared. How many times people thought we were brainwashed? They're afraid, they're scared. But we know the real reason. We understand the real heart, the real sacrifice that was required. Our training is conducted in the most painful way. We have no such thing as comfortable training. Why? Because we want to shorten our period of training. You have just begun to know a few things and you have met the challenge and go over it. You only have a few years to do that, so I am pushing you to speed up. Even at this moment, I am pressuring you. Throughout the 70s, you had some complaint, wanting to know why life had to be so difficult, why the hardship couldn't be spread out. But starting at this moment, you should give up complaint. Starting this year, you should look for the difficult jobs to do. If someone asks you for proof of how much I love humanity, you can tell them that I have matched thousands of couples of all races in the best possible way. That's proof of having loved mankind. And even afterward, I continue to train them and to care about them as I would my own children, planning how they will support and educate their families in the future. I have no preferences or prejudices. I have loved black people as much as white people and yellow people. When I go to the spirit world, I will visit hell, and no one there will oppose me. I will go to the area where white people are, and no one will accuse me, because they will know they are the ones who did not listen. In heaven, white people will want me to stay at their house and sleep in their own bedrooms. This is the essence. If we can love all kinds of people sincerely from our hearts, then there is no one that can accuse you. No one in the spiritual world can say bad things about you. Or they could, but they'll be shut down. Because suddenly they'll be faced with their own standard. What did they do to support God's will? What did they do to support true parents? What did they do to save America? If they come up and point the finger at you, then that's what they'll have to face. It won't be us accusing them. That's the reality. No one will accuse me because they will know. They are the ones that did not listen. How many tens of thousands of people have had the opportunity to see true parents and hear his speech? Even after Madison Square Garden, Yankee Stadium, Washington Monument, we spent tens of thousands of dollars to have the speeches printed in the newspapers so that the very next day everybody could open up the newspaper and read the entire speech. All the content has always been there. Have any of us ever told people, oh no, don't come to our workshops. Oh no, we're not going to teach you the divine principle. Get out of here. No. If anybody ever walked through that door, they could come right in here and they could study the divine principle and they could become a member just like you or I. Nothing. What's stopping them? What stopped them? Themselves. They chose. They chose what to think, what to believe, who to listen to. They chose. And there won't even be any judgment for that in the future, because there's nothing but benefit and blessing that's going to come to all mankind now because of what not only true parents, but what we did also. There are 12 pearl gates to heaven, and I can pass through many of them. Why 12? Because that represents 120, and also represents 360 degrees, encompassing every angle. Also, it symbolizes 12 different types of personalities. How can you pass through the gates? Only when you tag along with me. There are guards there who will challenge you and ask, "Who are you?" Then you will say, "Reverend Moon happens to be my father." They won't be satisfied with that, however. When they ask for proof, you can say, "Don't you know the divine principle? The divine principle says so." If he still doubts you, you can say, "Don't you think I look like Reverend Moon? I did the same things he did, so I should look like him by now." If the guard thinks you look like me, then he will let you in. What is this real meaning? This isn't, Father arrogantly saying, "Oh, if you don't believe in me, you're not going to go to heaven." No, he's explaining the principle. The principle is, if you live a God-centered way of life, then you will be seen as a God-centered person. Father said many times, the shortest way to get to the kingdom of heaven is to cling to him, to connect to him. Because he went this way first. He sacrificed this way. If we just learn a little bit of what he had to teach us, and we try to practice that. So, if we don't get into the kingdom of heaven by staying connected to Father, then we get there because we know the divine principle. But if we don't get there by knowing the divine principle, then if we try to do the things that Father did, then we look like him. What does it mean to look like him? It means we become a person of true love. That's the goal. You said you wanted to start the strictest training now, but actually it will last for the rest of your life. And you have no idea how long your life will be. If you have hated black people in the past, you should fundraise in the most difficult possible place, where you can earn only a few dollars, and then invite the ugliest, fattest black grandmother to go out for lunch at a Chinese restaurant. Then over lunch, you can say, "I have a confession to make. I have hated black people, but now I want to love them." You can tell her how you felt in the past, but when you joined the Unification Church and met Reverend Moon, you worked to train yourself as a champion of goodness. Now you repent, and as a sign of apology, you sincerely brought her out to dinner. When you beg her with tears to eat the dinner you buy, you will have identified your hate in the past. Maybe we haven't had this exact experience, but we have had experiences like this. I spent a lot of time in Philadelphia, and I used to go out late into the night and early into the morning, fundraising down certain strips, all black area. I was the only white person there selling boxes of candy in bars. I am surprised I am still alive, to be honest with you. I was too young and too innocent and too naive and too brainwashed to realize how serious my situation was. Oh, I got mugged once or twice, and there was a couple of times we got attacked. But I have to tell you, most of my experiences were beautiful. There were such good people, sincere, and I learned so much. And changes my heart. Changed my heart. And this is true of all of us. If someone has hated white people in the past, then he also has to repent. Whatever you have bound in the past, you have to unbind now and indemnify it. If a man has been a playboy in the past and made many women sorrowful, he has to find some situation where he can apologize to one woman representing all of them. If a woman is married several times, then she has to apologize to a man in the same way. Everything you have done which was unprincipled, you have to indemnify. That is your main task in 1980, to repent and then forget about the past. Don't let it drag you down, but pray to heaven to help you do away with it. Then look for the difficult thing and tackle it. That will be your best and fastest training. Again, this kind of teaching, this kind of education, understanding the deeper meaning of paying indemnity, of learning how to change our hearts so that we love people. From the bottom of our hearts, we have to grow and become people of love. Then we're gifted, we're blessed, we're capable of being free people, true freedom. If you are trying to find some loved ones, more value is added if you go the difficult way. It is not as valuable if you find one in an easy way, and you cannot feel as much value even if you try. But if you go through difficulty, you feel the value even if you try not to. We all say we love and follow God. But when you say it, and I say it, there is an entirely different quality in our words, even though we say the same thing. The main difference is that I have gone through tremendous suffering, while you have not. Never forget that how we go the path of true love is the real question. Whether you get a passing grade or flunk the course is determined by what difficulties you have persevered through. Are you going to be a failure or a success? Father's life, tremendous suffering. You know, we talk about 2 years and 8 months in a labor camp in North Korea. But we don't really understand. You think of 2 years and 8 months of your life. How many times do you face some kind of struggle or difficulty and then you complain about it? I complain about it. We're frustrated. It's difficult. Life is hard. Oh, I have to study this hard. I have to work this hard. Oh, you know, the bills, I have to pay the bills. The kids are crying, or my son or my daughter's not, you know, living up to the standard I wanted them to live up to. 2 years and 8 months. Starved to death, exposed to the elements, in an environment where people mocked you and hated you. You had no freedom, locked in a cell. 2 years, 8 months. And that was just that one incident. That doesn't even include being tortured almost to death for 3 or 4 days. And then going from country to country and working so hard, getting up so early in the morning, going to bed so late at night, teaching, preaching, fishing. 60 years old, 70 years old, 80 years old. So what Father says is it's absolutely true. But all of that sacrifice, he says here, everything that I paid for, you can have it. It's yours. All you have to do is reach out and take it by understanding and mimicking, appreciating what I went through. And remember, 1980. No matter how strong the communists may boast they are, when the cosmic spring comes, the ice has to melt. That cosmic spring centers on the warmth of love. When love visits, everyone opens the door of their mind. There is no area love cannot pass through. Just as Jesus followed a pattern, so we must do likewise. Each individual must condition himself to pass over a certain type of peak. In Western culture, 13 is an unlucky number, but actually, it is a good number. and we must cross over it. Americans are not ignorant people, but they don't know this all-important fact. Note that it was Jesus plus his 12 disciples, making 13. Also Jacob and his 12 sons, or 12 gates to reach God. If you are not successful with the number 13, then when winter comes, you will die of the cold. Americans are confronted by communism now and can't wiggle out of it. They are afraid of communism, wringing their hands and wondering what to do. But not the loonies. You have been taught that you have to go over the winter to enter the spring, so you will just swallow communism and digest it. America needs a leader who has intelligence enough to know this and to lead the nation in the right direction so it can conquer communism. As America perseveres, it can conquer the number 13 and stand right beside Jesus. We are bearing the cross of mankind, just as Jesus did. Now the loonies are doing it in place of today's Christians. The letter B is like the number 13. See? Because if you take this part and then this part, it's the number 13. Everything that starts with B is connected with 13. That's the quality you have to survive. Be a believer who is brave, bold, and bright. America is facing collapse from every angle, and the only thing holding it together is the Unification Church. It is incredible but true. I believe this is incredible, and I believe it is true. When we really think back at those times, there were very, very few people who really stood up against communism as boldly and as directly as we did. There were so many Catholics and Methodists and people from many different faiths who adopted what was called the liberation theology. And they tried to compromise, or they didn't really recognize that the ideology or the teaching of communism was a serious threat and menace. And communism was powerful and aggressive. It went into Zimbabwe, Nicaragua, Mozambique, down in South and Central America. And it was a real threat. And we really stood up against it. And it wasn't until, this is 1980, but it wasn't until 1990s, 91, 1990 meeting with Gorbachev, and then 1991 going to North Korea, meeting with Kim Il-sung. And of course, in 1989, the Berlin Wall came down. We forget. The content of this teaching was coming at a time when people weren't aware of how serious the situation was in the world. And we met the challenge and we brought the victory. And we should all be very, very happy about that. The most profound reason we fundraise is so that somewhere along the line we can get the signatures of 12 different people representing 120 countries. This is exactly what America is. A nation composed of 120 different nationalities of people. When a person gives you a donation, he is actually loving you and doing the same work you are. Therefore, God will give him some blessing. Then America, where the money will be spent, will also be blessed. All things will benefit from our fundraising. We do home church in order to find the 12 different types of people. Eventually, you have to get their signature of approval. For the time being, take my word for this and act on it. And later, see whether you can find any evidence to the contrary. This is the most, to me, this is so beautiful. The most profound reason we fundraise is that somewhere along the line we get the signatures. What does that mean, the signatures? It doesn't mean the physicals. It means they give you their love, that they accept you, that they let you into their lives, at least a little bit. when someone gave us money, when they gave us money, it says when a person gives you a donation, he is actually loving you and doing the same work as you are. Have you ever heard of such an inclusive teaching that would say that by a person giving us a donation, they will now be considered in God's eyes as having practically become a member just like us. And they're doing the same work that we are. So that God can bless them. God can bless people. And going to home church, meeting the different kinds of people, getting their signature, the same thing. How much do we love and let people connect through us so that they can have the blessing? So, when you look at the Unification Church, when you look at our movement has always been the most open and inclusive to the extent that it's unbelievable. True Father and our members, our purpose is to give blessing to people. I still, make money by going out and selling my wood roses. And I always pray for the people and always think, even though I'm not teaching them the divine principle in this moment, the fact of the matter is they are helping my family. They are giving something to me. Therefore, they are like a member. They can receive the same benefit, the same blessing. Someday in the spiritual world, I will stand up for them. I will stand up for them. I will say, God, bless these people. And we will have the authority. We have the authority to give the blessing. We have the authority. Father taught us a long time ago that when you become a blessed member, your position is greater than Jesus. Jesus forgave people's sins. Look what people made Jesus out to be. God. Which leads me close to my conclusion. And my conclusion comes talking about one of my favorite professors, Dr. Bart Ehrman. Dr. Bart Ehrman has just written a new book. It's called How Jesus Became God. The exaltation of a Jewish preacher from Galilee. This is an interview that he did with Christian Post. In a newspaper interview, New Testament scholar and author Bart Ehrman discusses his new book, How Jesus Became God, and shares his claim that Jesus never said he was divine and that Christianity began with visionary experiences and not due to the resurrection of Jesus. Jesus did not go around calling himself God, and even his disciples did not think he was God. Ehrman, a professor at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, tells the Boston Globe in an interview that was published on Easter Sunday, the problem is that Jesus only makes claims for himself as being divine in the Gospel of John. But what scholars have long noted is that Jesus doesn't say any of those things in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and that Matthew, Mark, and Luke are written much earlier than John. What I argue in the book is that it's virtually inconceivable that if it was known Jesus called himself God, that Matthew, Mark, and Luke would just leave that part out, says Ehrman, who calls himself an agnostic. The people who came to believe in the New Testament had a vision of Jesus afterwards, including Paul, argues the professor of religion. That led me to look into what we know about hallucinations based on modern psychological research, he says. This is the agnosticism in him, looking for the chemical, materialistic answer. The two most common kinds of hallucinations are of deceased loved ones, and the second kind is of revered religious figures. My view is that the disciples had some kind of visionary experiences. Some of them did. And these visionary experiences led them to conclude that Jesus was still alive. Yep, that's exactly what happened. Except they weren't hallucinations. They were real spiritual experiences, because Jesus really reappeared. He goes on to say, on when and how Christianity originated, Ehrman claims what is the religion of over 2 billion people in the world today began with the visionary experiences of some of Jesus' friends and at least one of his enemies. On several occasions, I've stood up here and I explained that the divine principle makes it very clear that the reason Christianity can exist is because Jesus reappeared to his disciples and Jesus appeared to Paul. Paul was the one enemy that he appeared to, and his disciples. And when he appeared to them, and when they had this profound experience, like this young 4-year-old boy, they were so moved and so convinced and so confident that they went out at the price of their lives and testified, Jesus is the Son of God, he's the Messiah, he's going to come again. If you believe in him, you'll be saved. The kingdom of heaven, he's going to bring the kingdom of heaven. That was it. And then Christianity began. Now you have a Bible scholar who is teaching this 40 years after true parents already were teaching this. Christianity in crisis. Fathers speaking to her through America. He explained this already. He taught this 40 years ago. It's on the records. You remember these speeches? I do. This is the incredible reality. It's like we're going full circle. You have one of the most popular movies in America is directly, not just Ghost. Ghost was, Ghost came in 1980, if I remember correctly, the movie Ghost, and it was very profound because it talked about the spiritual world. But the movie Heaven is for Real is just so much more direct, so much more confronting, so much more challenging to people. And then you have, like Bart Ehrman, a Bible scholar. Incidentally, I think next weekend he's speaking at the Sheraton Hotel in Raleigh. So if anybody's interested in hearing him, I've met him several times already, and I've read his books. But the point is, God is really working. You and I, need to really understand how blessed we are, that we really connected to someone who really understood clearly about God, about the spirit world, about the history of restoration through indemnity. And Father taught us very clearly about Jesus, everything. It's so wonderful. It's so marvelous. It's so fantastic. It's fantastically good. Okay? If you're still not sure, I can assure you, it's fantastically good what we've experienced. So let us, as we go through our daily life, remember, our life, everything about our life is connected to God and true parents, and to this mission or this purpose in life, which is to grow our hearts. We're not meant to just go to church on Sunday and that's where you pray and that's when you meet God and then the rest of your life is something different. That's why our movement was always so difficult to understand. Because our movement was a movement. It was a way of life. It wasn't about a religion. It was about a way of life where people become like Christ, where people grow and become people of true love. And we've become that. And now we have the power. We have the power to bring salvation to all mankind. So maybe it's not communism anymore that we have to digest. But whatever is out there, breakdown in the family, drug abuse, whatever the problem out there is, we have to digest it with true love, centered on the principles. And if we do that, the world is our oyster, and we have nothing but hope and promise of goodness ahead of us. Thank you. Let's pray. Heavenly Parent, again, we read these words. Our true Father delivered these words more than 30-something years ago. And He taught us and educated us, pushed us. Yes, we were in difficult circumstances. Sometimes we were frustrated with people that were around us. We felt we were being misused or abused or tricked sometimes. And we saw very little result. It didn't seem like the world changed very much. But the reality is that we were growing so much. We were evolving and becoming good people. We were learning precious, precious lessons in life. And we were sacrificing things to make it easier for you to give blessing to people and to protect people. And the communism disappeared. And even though there's still many problems between religions and races and cultures, true love will solve every problem. And true love belongs to those who are willing to sacrifice and willing to share it with other people. Help us become people of true love. Help us to realize that we have this incredible power, that we have this ability to brighten people's lives, to forgive people, to love people unconditionally. We don't need anything from anyone. We're not out to get something from someone. We're not out to trick them or to get them to join some church or take something from anybody. We have something so precious to give. Our true parents give it to us freely, and we can give it to everyone. And that is unconditional, compassionate love. Thank you very much again and again that these words are here for us to educate us and to inspire us. I pray that you'll bless every single person in this room and those that couldn't make it here and all of our family, and help us to go through every day, even though there are challenges and difficulties and struggles. Let us never forget that we live eternally, and that whatever lessons we can learn will be a benefit for us in the future. Thank you. We offer our prayers to you and report these things collectively as blessed central families, and also in my name, John Pace, and with Sharon Pace as a blessed central family. We pray and report these things. Amen.